lock to the side, push round, lock, and then parking light there. We turn the ignition on. On this side, obviously kill switch and start button in one. So as long as the red switch is up, start button will work. Just to kill the engine, you can just kill that and then key off, or just key off automatically. Underneath here, button which I would say do not use necessarily when running. That is your launch control button. You press that. You have 3 available launches. Effectively, the bike knows what you can't do is launch, launch, launch without letting the engine and clutch recover and cool down. But effectively, you go into launch control, you have select on here. My bike might need to rest. And then it basically tells you what to do. Pull the clutch, engage first gear, and open full throttle.
And then dump the clutch.
And then dump. It's not just let go. But there is a lot of electronics and it will look after you. But effectively, yes, a slightly gradual clutch. But yes, something to play with maybe when it's running a little bit. I wouldn't suggest doing that down the drive on day one. Just turn it off so we come out of that. So that's your button under here. Over on this side, obviously you've got automatic lights between daytime running and dip beam, which are on all the time. So if it gets a bit dark, you'll go to dip beam. Daytime running is there. On the back of the button here, you've got basically your full beam. So you pull to flash, or you click it away from yourself, will go on to full beam permanently.
LEDs?
Yes. You may find that just when you're getting used to it with a gloved finger, you sometimes may just knock that switch away from you and your full beam. Just flick it back towards you, and you're back on ordinary lights. You can override your daytime running and dip beam if you want to. You'll see you've got a little picture there with an A. The button up here basically will turn it off and then that'll put it onto a manual dip beam rather than having it on
that on here is dip beam
running. So yeah, basically every time you turn it off, unless you change the default, it will be on automatic daytime running or dip beam. Hazard lights, top button on here, press that, self-explanatory. I'll come back to these switches in a minute. Indicators conventional, left and right, the sensor to cancel. You've got your warning lights there, and the horn is underneath the bottom. In terms of the dashboard itself, obviously you've got your warning lights down the side. When it's on and even at idle, but without moving, your ABS and traction control lights will flash. They will go off when you're above 2 miles an hour, and right away. Neutral light, obviously got a gear indicator in the middle here. Quick shifter is enabled up and down in all riding modes. So if you use the clutch, it's fine, but if you don't, you've got the quick shifter up and down. Tends to suggest like first to second is that long throw through neutral. So it will work, but I tend to probably best to use your clutch first to second and then second and above. Use quick shifter. Oil pressure light will go out when she's running. Obviously, rev counter going round. Running in, the recommendation for the first 600 miles is 6,000 revs, but as we were saying, it's just a bit of mechanical sympathy. It's not like a BMW, it's not limited. You can use as much or as little as you want to from day one, but just be a bit sensible with it, especially as the first few miles, let it warm up. But when it's warm and you're a few miles in, don't worry if you go over, if you're doing overtaking, you go over 6,000, it's not an issue. These buttons and riding modes, effectively, there's lots of things that you can change and set. So over on the right hand side, you've got your levels. So traction control is DCC, wheelie control, slide control, engine brake control, ABS, suspension, and quick shifter. Now all of these are changing as you change the riding modes. To change the riding mode, you basically do a long press on the right hand side of this button where it says mode enter. You do a long press on there for a couple of seconds, it goes in, you choose the mode that you want, and it's basically telling you all the parameters that it's changing. When you're on the mode you want, a quick press and it will change. It tells you in here. So you've got street, which is low power, and all your safety systems fairly high up. So ideal if you do get caught in the pissing down rain, or if you're doing if you're in the city or something in slow speed, it's your sort of safe mode. You've then got sport, which is full power, but in a softer delivery than race. Safety system's fairly central, and then you've got race, full power, most aggressive delivery, all your safety systems right down. Suspension obviously will get firmer as you go through those as well. You can change and adjust it all, which I'll get to in a minute. But effectively, to change the modes, long press on the right hand side, choose the mode you want, quick press, and it will change. And it was there. If you're riding on, if you give it a bit of throttle stir, so as though you were riding along, if you were going to change it, so you leave it open, say we're going to go into race, it just comes up close to roll off the throttle and it will change, and then you can go back on. So if you don't roll off the throttle within about 2 or 3 seconds, it will then just default back to the mode you were in. So what it's not doing is changing the power or any of the levels of the systems whilst you've got throttles on. Same if you're on the brakes at all, it will say release brakes. So it won't change anything whilst you're doing something. But effectively roll on, roll off. In race, ABS goes down, it does warn you it's only on the front, you haven't got rear ABS. In race, again, you can change all this.
So stick it back on the street.
You happy with street to start with?
Yeah, I just thought,
Yep.
it's just easy.
Fine. So the up and down buttons on here basically scroll through. So if
That scrolls through. You
That
can
scrolls-
set these individually.
you can set these individually whilst you're going along. If it's got the little round circle, basically it means you can adjust it. So in here, if you wanted to change your slide control, you press the enter button of there, and then you can effectively change the level and press select again. But I'll put it back to it. So you can do those on the fly whilst you're going along, rather than changing the whole mode. You can, if you want to just suddenly have a little bit less wheelie control, you can just tweak that as you're going along. In terms of this button, we'll change the scroll through this side. So you've basically got over here air temperature. You've got 2 trip meters. Trip 2, live fuel consumption, setting menu we'll come back to, total mileage the bike's done, which is PDI mileage effectively, and trip 1. To reset the trips when you're on it, you just press the right hand side of this, the enter button. It will say reset question mark, yes I do, okay, and it resets it. If we come down here to settings, this is where it does get complicated, and please tell me to shut up if you just want to get out and write. This is where you can go in and customise and change everything in the settings. So if in the menus, up and down is basically your scrolling, and the right hand side of this button is your enter button. Within riding mode, if you say wanted to go into customise street and customise any of these things, so like this is Ducati Advanced Vehicle Control, which is traction, wheelie, slide. You can go in and then it will give you a little picture and it will tell you what you do. Do you want safe and stable, or do you want a bit more performance so you can slide a bit more? Effectively, you can just go through and change as you want to. Engine is your power level, ABS level, engine brake control level. You could turn the quick shifter off. I don't know why you'd want to, because if you just use the clutch, it won't do it, but it isn't so effective. I'll ignore that one. Info mode, in race, the rev counter basically squashes the lower bit and it has just the higher revs. It's a bit more stretched out. Again, you can change and customise that if you want to. Electronic suspension, this is where permutations are ridiculous. So it's automatically set to the factory's dynamic suspension. So semi-active, it's adjusting as you're going along. You can customise that and go in here and actually change the levels that you want to in terms of brake support. So how much is it stiffening up when you're under brakes, just normal front fork settings, rear shock settings, steering damper settings. You can go in and change them. You can also fix it, so it take off the semi-active side, have it your own fixed settings, so it's not changing, or you can fix it to the Ducati stock settings.
Right.
Again, you can change that for each mode, for each thing. So the permutations of things that you can do are ridiculous.
Just leave me stock.
Yours are all, if you have changed anything in any of these, you get a button at the bottom that says default. You press that and it will take you back to how it came from the factory. Pin code, to be honest, I wouldn't worry about it. You can set a 4-digit pin on the bike to bypass your immobiliser. You never know anyone need it. This works for the keyless bikes because then you use it if you lose your key, but on the keyed ones, I wouldn't really worry about it. Lap timer, if you're doing track days, or if you have a certain ring road and under a roundabout, you can set the lap timer in here. Yours, Stuart, has got GPS on it, so yours will actually know where you are. Yours you would do by flashing the headlight every time you go over the start-finish straight.
Okay.
Backlight is illumination of dash. At the moment, it's on auto, so it changes between black and white, white writing on black or black writing on white. If you prefer one or the other all the time, you can change it. Date and clock, fairly self-explanatory, setting the date and clock. Units, again, if you popped over to France and you want to go and change your speed into kilometres, etc., you'd go in there and do that. Service will basically count down to service intervals. Once you've had the 600 service, it will come on at 620. The service light on a V4, I don't know what Italian thought of it. It's a picture, it will say oil and a picture of a red box with an oil can on it. Everyone phones up and goes, my bike's saying it needs oil. It doesn't, it's a service light. So a red box with oil and an oil can is your service light, which will come on at 620 odd. Don't worry about it.
That's your oil light.
That's your oil light, exactly. But it's effectively this, it's the same as that picture in a red box in the dash, which is understandable why everyone goes, yeah. Tyre calibration. If you were doing track days or for some reason you changed the tyre sizes or your gearing to reprogram all the traction control and everything, you basically calibrate to new ratios. So if you had a slightly different profile tyre.
Crikey.
Daytime running lights. Again, if you wanted to turn them off and have it on dip beam all the time, etc., you can go in and do that. Turn indicators, you have auto self-cancelling turn indicators. It's done on lean angle and time. Again, you can turn them off if you want to. Don't think you would. Info will basically give you battery voltage, etc. In there.
You've been in the garage for a while.
Yeah. So battery voltage and a revs figure, which is more useful for us rather than a dial, which is not an absolute number. That's just an absolute number, but not something you'd necessarily use. And then exit out. So that basically is in the settings. So trip, you've got trip time. We can go trip 1 is there, and total mileage is about.
So what did you do?
So literally just scrolling using the up and down to go through the menus.
Alright, so that's where's the fuel sort of thing?
There isn't a fuel gauge.
Right.
When the fuel level gets low, it will basically come up with a fuel light, and then you'll get a mileage reading down here that's trip fuel. It will count how many miles you've ridden with the fuel light.
Has it got a range?
No.
Like how many miles have you got to go?
No. Because it hasn't got a gauge inside the tank, so it doesn't actually know how much fuel.
When does it tell you?
It will basically tell when you've got about 20 miles left, the light will come on.
Right.
So when the light comes on, obviously depending on how you're riding and what you're doing, but the light will come on, and then in here it will say trip fuel 0 to start with, and then it will count up. So if you do 5 miles with the fuel light on, and then put the bike away and then get it out the following weekend, when you turn it back on again, it will still say trip fuel 5.
So where do I get trip to?
Scroll up and keep scrolling through and do this. Okay.
So it's done 7 miles on.
Yeah.
So if I'm on trip 2, how do I clear that?
So press the right hand side of that button. So reset and then press it again to confirm. And it's reset.
Right. And then, so where's my total mileage?
Total is there.
That's total
That's
mileage.
total mileage.
And then there's trip 1 in total. Right.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
All right.
Yep.
Any other questions at all?